Agit Mayit, everybody. Moadim l'simcha, Chag Sameach. Welcome to Jerry's Corona Contemplations for Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah, Simcha Torah, and Parshat V'zot HaBracha. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and let's jump right into it. One of the main mitzvot of Sukkot is, of course, the mitzvah of the Arba Minim. The Arba Minim, the Etrog, the Hadas, the Arava, the Lulav, and it's one of the more esoteric minhagim, halachot, minhagim. There are so many minhagim that surround it, but that we practice. As a matter of fact, it's one of those things that if you didn't know what it was and you were looking at the whole Hoshanot and the waving of the lulav and the esrog, you would think that this is some sort of Indian dance or something. And it's just, there are so many reasons given. Of course, it has to do with the season and praying for sustenance at this time as we leave Yom Kippur. But I was thinking, and I mentioned this at a Dvar Torah I gave this week. One of the reasons given for the Arba Minim is that they represent different things. We've heard the one that they represent different parts of the body. The esrog looks like the heart, of course, the lulav, the spine, the hadassim look like the eyes, and the aravot look like the lips, and how all of our faculties should be used in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Hashem, serving God. And another one that I have heard, and it's a very popular explanation, is that the Arba Minim represent, just like the four sons on Pesach night, they represent four different types of Jews. The Etrog, which has taste and smell, represent those that have Torah learning and also Ma'asim Tovim, good deeds. The Lulav, which has the fruit of the Lulav, of course, it's a palm branch, so the date has taste but no smell. That represents the Jew that has Torah learning but maybe not so much on the good deeds. Then you have the one who the Hadassim have smell but no taste. They smell very beautiful, but there's no taste. So that's the Jew that has lots of good deeds, but maybe isn't the world's greatest scholar or rabbi. And then you have the Arava, the lowly Arava, the willow, that has no taste and no smell, or as we say in Mamalushan, Nishkan Tam, Nishkan Reich. That's the Jew that has neither Torah learning nor deeds. He's kind of out there. And I couldn't but think of one of the side effects of coronavirus. Two of my daughters, my daughter Shandy in New York, my daughter Goldie here, have both suffered from it. I probably had some sort of I had exposure when I went to the States recently, and everything tasted like metal for a while. Probably had it. I didn't feel good. Probably had a low fever. Please God, that should be it. And I was thinking about how the sense of smell and the sense of taste are lost from this virus. And if you remember, throughout these past many months and weeks of shiurim that I've been trying to impart to everybody, you got to listen to your messages. And I'm not into getting into God's head and trying to figure out what he's thinking, but by the same token, we're commanded to listen to our messages. Reb Frand, of course, has a couple of Svarim by that name. And we, through this virus, took from people their tam and their reach, their taste and their smell. And we know that the Yid, the Jew that doesn't know from anything, who grew up without any exposure to Judaism, didn't go to Hebrew school or yeshiva, or doesn't know from nothing, why? Why are we being given this message now? And I couldn't help but think, maybe the rest of us are not doing the job that we should be doing to bring those people closer, to reach out to them. So God's taking from us our sense of smell and our sense of taste, saying, have you reached out to the Jew, nishkan tam, nishkan reach? Are you doing everything you can to bring people closer? To be a mensch? My God, the cacophony of hate that's out there, because I like Trump and this one likes Biden, and people are swearing at each other on social media. What? What's going on? That's nishkan tam, nishkan reich. Maybe we, through our actions, aren't behaving in a way that would give people a good name, that would give Am Yisrael a good name. And that's taking the Jew, nishkan tam, nishkan reich, and pushing them even further away. Instead of being makarev rechaikim, we're being merache kroivim. We have to think about this. When we're sent a message that's so loud, at this time of year, I mean, it's been since Pesach, I mean, since Purim even, but here we are on Sukkot, and people, we're going through the second wave. Are we doing what we have to do? But the lowly arava, the willow, is the only one of the arba minim that gets its own holiday. Isn't that interesting? Hoshana Rabbah. What do we do on Hoshana Rabbah? We take the willow branch and we circle the Mizbeach. Bezrat Hashem, we'll be doing it, but until then we'll be circling the... Well, this year I don't even know if we're not even going to be in shul to circle the bima. We'll be walking around with the on the Sefer Torah. We'll put the Sefer Torah. We'll walk around with the arava. Why does the arava get its own holiday? Well, the arava is the most dependent of the four species on water. It's a willow. Willows grow near the water. They can't survive without water. You don't believe me? Look at your aravos right now, if you haven't replaced them, as I haven't. They look like tzarachmanis, right? But without water, no arava. So on Hoshana Rabbah, we ask Hashem once again. We say you should have a gittin kvitel, a pit gataba. We are asking Hashem for parnasa. We're asking Hashem for sustenance. And it's the arava, the one that has nishkan tam, nishkan reich, the arava that has no sense or no sense of smell, no sense of taste, is celebrated on Hoshana Rabbah right before we go into Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah. Again, what's the message? Our parnasa is dependent upon Hashem. This is what we're being taught. Without the bracha from Hashem, there is no parnasa. And we have to once again think about that. What are we being told here? It is this one of the arba minim that is teaching us how dependent we are on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to desire to be close to Hashem. And in order to be close to Hashem, as we know from Yom Kippur and from the davening, we say, Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'chanan, we have to emulate Hashem. We want Hashem to bring us close. We want parnasa. We want sustenance. We want to have food on the table. We have to make sure others have it. We have to be magnanimous both in our deeds, in our outreach to others, and in making sure that people, especially during this time, when so many people, their businesses were affected. How many people lost their business? How many restaurants are closed for good? How many mom and pop shops couldn't pull it out? Are we making sure that other people are taken care of? Nishkan tam, nishkan reach. We have to make sure they have what they need if we want Hashem to give us what we need. These are the messages, little messages, but very, very important that we're learning from the Arba Minim, from the Parsha every week, and through current events. When things earth-shattering like this happen, we have to ask, what is it that God is telling us? So, Sukkah, that word says Sukkah, there it is. Thought I moved it over enough. But the Sukkah is the mitzvah that we do immediately right after Yom Kippur. Why? Ki basukot hoshafti et bnei Yisrael b'otzio otam me'eretz Mitzrayim. Hashem, we dwelt in huts, we were nomads, we dwelt in our nomadic huts as we were taken out of Egypt. But that took 40 years. It wasn't only at the end of September, beginning of October, Tishrei. No, it was for 40 years, so why now? There are all sorts of reasons given. But when we go out into the Sukkah, we are telling Hashem, we don't need any gashmiut. We just want to be close to you. We want to sit in the Tzela Demheimenuta. We want to sit under the protection of God. In the desert, there were the Ananei HaKavod, the clouds of glory, and that's what the schach, the covering of the Sukkah, is reminiscent of. That's what we're telling Hashem. After Yom Kippur, when we fasted and we prayed and we tried to separate ourselves as much as possible from the material, we're going out into the Sukkah and telling Hashem, we only want you. We don't need any of this materialism. How many can really say that? I don't know. But it's also a mashal for galut, for galus. We leave the comfort of our home and we go out into the temporary dwelling. The diaspora, the exile, is our temporary dwelling. Some people take their sukkah and they make it nicer than their home. Okay, I understand that. People, they take out the bed, they sleep in the sukkah, people hang chandeliers, it's very nice. And you're supposed to glorify the sukkah because it's an important mitzvah. As a matter of fact, it's considered a mega mitzvah. What is a mega mitzvah? A mitzvah that you do with your entire body. Right? There are very few mitzvot that you could really do with every single limb. Every single limb. It's interesting. You completely involve yourself in the mitzvah. And there's one other. Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. You do with your entire body. It's Keneged Kol HaTorah Kula. You're going into the sukkah with your whole self. You pick up and you leave the galut and you move to Eretz Yisrael with your whole self. Those are the only two that I know of. I mean, mikvah, but kind of hard to find a doraisa dika mikvah these days. I mean, if you got a harabayas, yeah. But to people have taken their galut and turned it into their permanent dwelling. Remember, the galut is only a temporary dwelling. The main dwelling is in Eretz Yisrael. So when you're sitting in Chutz La'aretz in your sukkah, You have to think this is only temporary. Just like whatever I have here in Chutz La'aretz is temporary. One day I'm going to go back into my home. One day I'm going to go back to my permanent dwelling in Eretz Yisrael. And if you stay in the sukkah too long, it'll become winter, it'll rain, it'll snow depending on where you live, there'll be hurricanes, and it'll blow away, or it could burn down from a spark. Remember this, it's temporary, it's not full time. Eventually we want to go home. And hopefully all of us will get that message that if we really want to be close to Hashem, as wonderful as the sukkah is, it's only for 7 days. Baruch shechiyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. I started this series of videos last year, Parshas Bereshis. And Baruch Hashem, we are going to finish with Bezot HaBracha. And I will be restarting with Bereshit once again. Hopefully, we'll have some new insights, some new thoughts. And let us remember, as we're about to finish this first series, Bezot HaBracha, Moshe Rabbeinu was standing on the banks of the Jordan River, looking into Eretz Yisrael. And Hashem told him, this is as far as you're going. Moshe, with his entire being, wanted one thing, to go into Eretz Yisrael and to see the land. How many of us have that opportunity, but choose not to take it? After 120 years, Rabbosai, what are we going to tell Hashem? When Moshe Rabbeinu is standing up there in the Bezdin Shalmala, in the Yeshiva Shalmala, what are we going to tell him? That's all I wanted, and you could have done it, and you didn't. I don't know what I'd answer. But let's just think a little bit further. When Moshe didn't lead the people into Eretz Yisrael, Yoshua ben Nun took over. And in the Haftarah of Shmini Atzeret, of Simchat Torah, after we finish Bezot HaBracha, we read the Haftarah, Vayehi Achrei Mot Moshe Eved Hashem, and it's now Yoshua's turn to lead the people. What does Hashem tell him 3 times? Chazak v'yamatz, all within like the first parak. He says, Chazak v'yamatz, ki ata tanchil et ha'am hazeh el ha'aretz, et ha'aretz. Rak chazak v'yamatz me'od, lishmor la'asot et kol ha'torah. And then it says, Halo tziviticha, chazak v'yamatz, al ta'aratz, Al Techat. Right? So Hashem tells Yoshua, you have to be strong because you are going to inherit the land for the people. So Chazak v'yamatz al Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. What else? Chazak v'yamatz me'od. Be very diligent and very strong in your service of Hashem, because they, as Rav Kahana Zecha Tzadik Kodesh Levracha Schusi Yagein Aleinu used to say, if you take Zionism out of Torah Judaism, or you take Judaism out of Zionism, you deal a death blow to both of them. They go together. They're not separate. So you have to Chazak v'yamatz to inherit the land, Chazak v'yamatz, lishmar et kol HaTorah, and when going out to war, and this goes for everybody today who serves in the IDF or should serve in the IDF, halotzi v'ticha chazak v'yamatz, do not be afraid because Hashem is with you. But they all go together. You have to have Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, Shmiras HaMitzvos, And when necessary, we have to have a military. It all goes together. And it's very, very important to realize that we know that Hashem doesn't throw words around. This is the reason it's said 3 times is to teach us the importance of all 3 of these very important mitzvot. Rabbi say, Hadran Allah, Chamisha Chumshei Torah. We have managed to go through all 5 books of the Torah, starting with Bereshis, and we will begin again, as we always do, because Torah is eternal, and Limud Torah is eternal. And hopefully, as long as Hashem gives me the strength, I hope to continue doing this. Shabbos Yimakar HaBracha Ravosai. It's only Wednesday today, but let's not forget another important Shabbos coming up. This one is Shabbos Shmini Atzera Simchas Torah V'hayita Ach Sameach. We should be happy with our families, enjoying the Simchat Torah to the best that we can. Of course, there's not going to be the level of dancing and celebration as we usually have, but just like we did with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, let's make the best of it and realize how much more, even with coronavirus, we have than 1 or 2 generations ago, depending on how old you are, and what they gave up. They gave up their lives, but what they sacrificed just to be able to do a mitzvah. Baruch Hashem, even in the worst of times like this, we are able to be on a much better, we're in much better shape. So, Ein Yisrael Nigalin Ela B'Zchut HaShabbos. Let's make it a beautiful Shabbos combined with a beautiful Yontif. Join us back here for Sefer Bereshis as we kick it off one more time, and may this coming year be the end of this Fakakta virus. We should once again go back to a normal, well, for me, whatever, normal means, but whatever type of normal existence. Have a beautiful Shabbos, a beautiful Yontif. Thank you for joining us. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.